Welcome back to The Haunted Beard, everybody. Thank you for joining me. So it has been a little while, probably at least a couple, 3 months or so since I've done my last Tales from the Crypt video, tier ranking video. And I've been making my way through the entire series. This is my first time watching the show and going through it. Been going through it season by season and doing a ranking or a tier list video. And today we are on season number 5. So here is my official ranking and tier list for season 5 of Tales from the Crypt. We've got 13 episodes here in season 5. And overall impressions, I actually thought season 5 was pretty good. I was kind of expecting, I don't know why, but I was kind of expecting as I kind of progressed through that the quality would kind of eventually sort of decline and taper off. But season 5 overall was a pretty good season. So this is a season especially though that I've noticed a pretty common kind of recurring theme that I think you could apply to almost all of the episodes, which is basically they could kind of all be summarized into a bad guy gets his comeuppance, which I feel like is probably true for most of the episodes in general. But anyways, let's get to the tier list video. So here we go. We got 5 tiers from the very top, Happy Crypt Day to me, to this one's a Crypt Keeper. Mid-tier is Hello Boils and Ghouls, and then Betty Croker's Cookbook, and then the bottom is Ready Your Vomit Bag. So let's start off with episode 1, and this one is Death of Some Salesman. And right off the bat, season 5 came out swinging. This one's going to go right at the very top for me. And the main reason why is 2 words: Tim Curry. And if you've seen this episode, you know it's pretty fantastic. So this one tells a story of this salesman played by Ed Begley Jr., he's basically a con man. And so he cons people and rips people off out of their life savings by setting up this this sort of funeral home sort of scheme. He's like selling people plots of land for them to, bury their loved ones, only he doesn't actually own it. He just cons them out of money by, getting them to put a deposit and a down payment on it. And then he leaves and you never see him again, sort of thing. So, but then he comes upon the house of Tim Curry and he meets his match one day. And the great thing about this, the absolute highlight of not only this episode, but the highlight of the whole season is probably Tim Curry in this episode, because not only do you get one character, you get 3 characters of Tim Curry he plays this old couple, husband and wife, and then also another character as well. I won't say what, but yeah, look, this one is just pretty great. His performance is fantastic. This one too has some good dark humor. There is a moment in the movie that involves, I'll just say, a color TV, where there's this kind of reveal regarding a color TV that got a genuine laugh out of me. This one too is, man, it's kind of darkly comedic, and I'm sitting there watching it with a smile on my face. It kind of just has that good sort of, Tales from the Crypt, dark humor in it. And then there is this scene that happens between one of Tim Curry's characters and Ed Begley Jr. that is genuinely it's probably the most uncomfortable I've been so far watching this show. It's just, it kind of goes from that darkly humorous tone to all of a sudden, now I feel really gross and uncomfortable. So yeah, that happened. I don't want to spoil anything because, go check it out, I guess. But yeah, Tim Curry's great in this, and I just thoroughly enjoyed his performance. This one has a pretty nice kind of a little bit of an unexpected sort of ending to it, but as I've said a million times already, Tim Curry's the highlight and definitely makes this one a must-watch as far as I'm concerned. So Death of Some Salesman is going up at the very top tier for me. So next up, we've got As Ye Sow. And this one to me was just okay. So I'm going to put this in kind of the mid-tier Hello Boils and Ghouls. And overall, it's just a decent episode. It's about this guy who suspects his wife of cheating on him. And he goes eventually to hire this private investigator, and his suspicions seem to be confirmed, but of course, nothing is quite as it seems, sort of thing. This one kind of has sort of the age-old lesson of, your sins will find you out, right, sort of thing. And again, it's kind of another one where this sort of, bad guy gets his comeuppance sort of thing. I'll probably be saying that a handful of times throughout this episode, but it is kind of a recurring theme that applies to mostly all of them, like I said. But yeah, there's not one here that it doesn't really stand out. It gives you a little bit of this. I kind of liked some of the, private investigator sort of film noir-ish type vibes that it gave. But overall, pretty standard stuff. He eventually ends up kind of hiring this hitman. He suspects her having this affair and is cheating on him with a Catholic priest. So you kind of introduce some of those sort of elements into it and everything. And obviously it's by no means a bad episode, but it just kind of feels pretty average, pretty standard. Doesn't really do anything to really, set itself apart or do anything really all that great. So that's where that one is going. Next up, episode 3 is Forever Amberree, I think is how you pronounce it. And this one to me was pretty good. I'm going to put this one here at the second tier. This one's a Crypt keeper. Definitely one of the better ones in this season. This one stars Roger Daltrey, the guy from the classic rock band The Who. And also stars a young Steve Buscemi, which was kind of fun to watch because Steve Buscemi's great. So anyways, yeah, the performances here. Daltrey's not quite as strong. He's more of a musician first, but he's not bad. But Buscemi's quite good. I liked watching Buscemi. But anyways, this one tells the story of this kind of older sort of has-been photographer played by Daltrey, and he's a war photographer, and he goes into these war zones and takes all these crazy intense pictures, putting his life on the line. And Buscemi's kind of the young up-and-comer who's looked up to Daltrey and wants to be just like him, only Daltrey's now, he's kind of over the hill, he's the has-been, and Buscemi's the talented one. And so there's kind of a little bit of this subplot where Daltrey comes over to Buscemi's house and he's kind of got the hots for Buscemi's girlfriend. So there's kind of a weird little thing going on there, but eventually they end up going to this war zone, and stuff happens. And the story overall in this one is decent, but what kind of made this one pretty good and worthwhile is it's got some pretty top-notch kind of practical gore effects and some body horror. So that alone really made this one kind of stand out and made it worth watching. I would say of all these, as far as just like, getting into some of the gnarly, gory horror, like the real gore and the practical stuff like that, this one is probably the best out of any of those. So if you like kind of the practical gore and stuff like that, this one is got some pretty good stuff in it that I think makes it worth a watch. So other than that, though, the story's, it's decent, but the gore there makes it worth watching. So anyways, next up, we've got Food for Thought. And this one to me is pretty forgettable, pretty unmemorable. So I'm going to put this one... honestly, I can kind of hardly remember much about it right now, and I just watched it a couple days ago. I'm going to put this one in the bottom here, ready your vomit bags. This one tells the story of this. It takes place at this like circus, which we've seen a few times now. I feel like this is like either the third or fourth episode throughout this show so far that's taken place at this circus, where you kind of got this sort of side freak show kind of thing going on. And this one, you've got this guy who alleges to be a mind reader. And he's got this woman who he basically he's just extremely controlling and possessive over her. He's abusive, and he's just kind of an awful person. But he claims to be able to read her mind, and he can communicate to her telepathically. And so he just has this, dominant control over her. And like I said, this one's just kind of forgettable. The performances aren't really anything all that special. The performance by the co-lead, Joan Chen, is not great. and it's just not very good. Again, there's not a whole lot to say about it. It doesn't really do anything surprising or interesting. There's not really any good horror elements to it. There's not really any good dark humor to it. Again, it's, a bad guy gets his comeuppance, which obviously can be done quite well or can be done not so well. In this case, it's just not so well. So yeah, I don't really have much more to say about this one. There's just not really a whole lot to say about it. So yeah, I didn't really care for it, obviously. So there you go. All right, that takes us to episode number 5. And episode number 5 is People Who Live in Brass Hearses. And this is another one that is going all the way at the very top. Now, man, it's going to be really hard to rank these ones that are in the top tier. And once I get to the end of this, I might rearrange them a little bit. But right now, we'll just kind of go in order. But anyways, People Who Live in Brass Hearses. This one stars the late, great Bill Paxton and the one and only Brad Dourif. This one's got just some great performances. And they are two brothers who are criminals. At least, Paxton's kind of the criminal, and he's sort of the older brother who kind of, bosses his younger brother, Brad Dourif, around. Brad Dourif is, he's kind of he's a little bit slow, kind of the dumb younger brother sort of thing, and just kind of gets bossed around by Bill Paxton. But they're looking to score. They're trying to get some money, and they're just these, kind of low life criminals looking to score some money. And so they plan this robbery that they are going to rob this ice cream manufacturer, which is where Brad Dourif works. And this one just has some kind of weird, odd, sort of crazy stuff happening in it. The opening shot is this over-the-head shot of the two brothers in their apartment, and the camera, it's kind of this longer take. The camera kind of drops down in on the action and kind of tracks Paxton through the apartment a little bit. But then Bill Paxton pulls out a stick of butter and just starts eating it like it's a candy bar. And it's just like, what? All right, what's going on here? Just sort of this like weird little character quirk. But anyways, they plan this robbery of this ice cream store. And one of the things I liked about this, in addition to the performances, because the performances are really great. Love watching Paxton and Dourif is always great. This one felt a little bit like a Coen Brothers movie. It gave me a little bit of kind of like Burn After Reading vibes, where you've got these basically like incompetent people trying to pull off, a crime. And they're just totally incapable of pulling it off, right? And so you kind of get some of those sorts of vibes with it, which I really enjoyed and appreciated. And then the highlight for this one, though, is the ending. And I won't spoil it, but dude, this has the most, like, insane, crazy, ridiculous, and absurd ending I think I've ever seen in any episode of this show. It is so completely unexpected and just so ridiculous. I thought it was absolutely hilarious because it is just so far out of left field that you're like, what in the world? It doesn't really make any logical sense if you think about it for more than 2 seconds, but that's kind of why I loved it, because it is just so completely absurd that this is kind of the only type of show I feel like where you could kind of pull this off, because again, it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's the show where the humor and kind of the ridiculousness of it all is sort of played right into the horror of it. So yeah, this one has a handful of reasons to give it a watch, but the ending is seriously absolutely ridiculous. But definitely check this one out. I had a lot of fun with it. All right, so that takes me to episode 6, and that is 2 for the show. And this is another one I am going all the way up to the very top. Happy Crypt Day to me. This is another really solid one that I quite enjoyed. The story here is the real hook for me. Just a really good kind of suspenseful story, and I really bought in and was really interested in seeing how it was all going to play out. So this one starts off with this married couple, and the wife tells him that she wants a divorce and she has been cheating on him because he has basically completely neglected her. And out of a fit of rage, he kills his wife. and now he's got to figure out what to do with the body. And so how it plays out from there, and I won't get too far into it, but the police get called because his neighbors heard screams or whatever. So this police officer shows up and he starts looking around his apartment, and the guy tells him, yeah, we got in this big fight and my wife left for Chicago or something like that. Well, then not too long later, the guy puts his wife in a trunk and is going to ship the trunk on a train to Chicago. Well, the police officer is at the train station because he suspects this guy of something, and they end up both boarding this train. And so you kind of get this battle between the police officer and this guy who just killed his wife, and how is it all going to play out? But I'll just say there's more to it than that. There's kind of another layer going on underneath the surface that I don't want to give away, but man, I just really enjoyed this one. I really enjoyed kind of the back and forth of, kind of who's got the upper hand, how is it going to go? And I'll just say it does not play out the way that you expect. It's got some genuine surprises and some good twists. This one gave me a little bit of Alfred Hitchcock vibes, which is always a great thing. Think a little bit of Strangers on a Train and mixed with his other classic film, Rope. And so if you know those two films, you're definitely going to kind of pick up some similarities of those two Hitchcock films in this episode, which I just thought was great. So yeah, this is another one that I just really enjoyed, and the ending too, and just kind of watching the whole story play out. Good suspense building, good mystery to it. And yeah, this is a really good one as well. So that's why it's up at the top tier. Okay, that takes me to episode 7, which is House of Horror. And House of Horror for me is going to go down here in Betty Croker's cookbook. I wasn't too much of a fan of this one. This one has Will Wheaton in it and also Kevin Dillon. And it takes place at this college, and it takes place at this frat house. And Will Wheaton is amongst some of the new young recruits, and he's going through this hazing ritual, all to be a part of this fraternity. And Kevin Dillon is the guy who's carrying out all the hazing stuff. And eventually what happens is their final kind of initiation before they get accepted by the fraternity is they have to go into this haunted house. And inside this haunted house, there's this legend attached to it about this, chainsaw wielding killer sort of thing. Yeah, this one is... There's just not a whole lot to say. Kevin Dillon's performance in this is not great. It's very just, dude bro, frat bro type of just overacting, exaggerated, extreme, just on the nose sort of thing. It's just kind of obnoxious, which again is sort of the point, but it's just annoying mainly. And none of it really plays out in an interesting way. And then you kind of get this final reveal that is, it's kind of surprising, but it's just kind of cheesy and ridiculous, and kind of, the whole eye roll, like, all right, I guess, sure. It's just kind of dumb. None of it's very scary or effective. There's just nothing really about it that really worked for me or is all that memorable. So, yeah, it's just not that great of an episode overall. So that's why it goes down in Betty Croker's cookbook. All right, next up we've got episode 8, which is called Well-Cooked Hams. And this one for me, this is another one that it's just not great. I'm going to put it down here also in Betty Croker's cookbook. This one tells the story of this magician played by Billy Zane, who has just kind of taken over from this big famous magician who's just kind of recently disappeared. And so he's taken over his performance and show, but he is just not very good. He's not very talented. He doesn't kind of really know what he's doing. But then one night at one of his shows, this kind of creepy old mysterious guy shows up. And then the old guy invites Billy Zane to his magic show. This old guy is a magician himself. And this guy's played by Martin Sheen in some very thick makeup. And what ends up happening is Billy Zane's kind of, another terrible guy who gets his comeuppance sort of thing. But he ends up stealing Martin Sheen's magic trick. And this one, I like the setup here. I like the time period. I like kind of the magician stuff. You know, it was giving me a little bit of Prestige vibes just because of, you know, the content and the time period and things like that. But none of it plays out in all that interesting of a way. It's fine. It's just, again, it's another one. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. It's all right. Nothing too memorable. The ending's pretty predictable. You kind of see and tell where it's headed. Doesn't really do anything all that surprising. Doesn't really have any good kind of horror elements to it. Yeah, it's just another one that's just kind of forgettable and doesn't really do much to stick out. There's not a whole lot to say about it. So, yeah, there you go. All right, that takes me to episode 9, which is Creep Course. And Creep Course for me, this one's decent. I'm going to put this one in mid-tier in Hello, Boils and Ghouls. So this one takes place at a high school, and it opens up with this professor who's teaching a class on ancient Egypt. And you've got these couple of students. One of them is played by, what's his name? Anthony Michael Hall. And he is kind of this jock who's not very good. And he ends up getting the kind of the smart, nerdy girl in the class to help him pass his test. Because if he doesn't pass, he's not going to be able to play in the football game, sort of thing. And this one was all right. I think this is the first episode that has a mummy in it. So, you know, I guess that was kind of cool. Kind of, you know, the whole ancient Egyptian sort of thing with the tombs and all that stuff. So it felt a little bit different. It stood out a little bit. This one has some decent kind of body horror gore in it a little bit. Not as good as the Forever Amberree one by any means, but, you know, it's got some decent stuff in it. The ending reveal is kind of fun. It's kind of one of those sort of Tales from the Crypt moment where it's funny and horrific at the same time sort of thing. You're like, yeah, all right, that's kind of cool. There is a scene that happens later on that's just totally ridiculous where the girl starts communicating with a mummy and, you know, she makes the mummy believe that she is, you know, this ancient Egyptian princess, which to me, it was just, I don't know. I mean, I understand this show goes into kind of the ridiculous levels sometimes, but I mean, I don't know. It was just kind of silly because it's like, well, it wouldn't understand English, but, you know, okay, whatever. So maybe I'm thinking about it too much. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, it's all right. There's just, it's an okay episode. So there's not much more to say about it. It's a decent middle of the road one. Let's go on to episode 10. All right, next up, episode 10 is Came the Dawn, and this is another one, guys, that is going all the way up in the very top tier. Came the Dawn is another pretty solid episode. This one opens up, this woman gets murdered in a bathroom at a restaurant, and then we, like, jump cut to a completely different place and location, and we're not really sure how that event fits into the story until a little bit later on, but then it cuts to this wealthy guy who is driving home one night in this storm, and he sees a hitchhiker broken down on the side of the road. Turns out the hitchhiker happens to be Brooke Shields. So this guy's like, well, I'm going to pick her up. So he picks up Brooke Shields on the side of the road, and he ends up talking to her and convincing her to come with him to his cabin that night so he can kind of help her out or whatever. But of course, he's got some other plans in mind. But this one, I don't really want to give anything else away because this one really subverted my expectations at multiple times where, you know, as you progress through the episode, you think you know who Brooke Shields is and kind of what's going to happen and how it's going to play out. And then things kind of get twisted and turned a little bit. And then they sort of get twisted and turned again. And then there's a final reveal at the end that I was like, wait, what? And so it genuinely surprised me and subverted my expectations, which is, to me, like one of the best compliments you can give really anything, whether it be, you know, a TV episode or a movie or whatever. So having it sort of a genuine surprise is just like, I love it. That's, you know, that's why I watch. So, yeah, this one's good. Just, again, it's another one where the story, kind of like that other one too for the show, where it's like, you're genuinely invested in, okay, how is this all going to play out? They just built a nice mystery within the story and kind of watching it all, unfold is a whole lot of fun. And when you get kind of that final twist reveal, for it to be genuinely surprising is just like, what more could you ask for? So yeah, had a really good time with this one as well. I really like Came the Dawn. Okay, next up we've got episode 11, and this one is Oil's Well That Ends Well. And this one for me is going to go up here in This One's a Crypt Keeper. In fact, I'm going to put it right there in front of Forever Amberree. This one stars Lou Diamond Phillips and Priscilla Presley. And they are this. Oh, it also stars John Kassir, who is the voice of the Crypt Keeper. So that was kind of cool. Anyways, Lou Diamond Phillips, Priscilla Presley, they are this couple, and they are basically these two con men who are, trying to rip people off, kind of like in Death of Some Salesman. But they got this pretty elaborate scheme that they're working on. She pretends to be this woman employed by this oil company. And she tells people that she has discovered a location where there is oil. And they con people by telling them, hey, nobody knows about this secret place yet. Will you invest some money into this so we can, put this thing together and we'll all get rich? Only, they get some of the money and then of course they split. But this is one that I think in some ways where you kind of have sort of those, cross and then double crosses, the whole con game. It can maybe get a little convoluted, but this was one that it did keep me guessing. It probably is a little convoluted if you really think about it. But I had a fun time with it. Lou Diamond Phillips is pretty good. Priscilla Presley's not great, but she's okay. But yeah, it's another one where you just kind of buy into the story. You're kind of waiting to see who's going to have the final upper hand sort of thing, who's going to come out on top, who's going to be the winner, who's going to be the loser, the cross, the double cross, the twist, the turn, and everything like that. So, yeah, not quite as good as some of the other episodes, but still a pretty good episode that I enjoy kind of watching how it was all going to play out. So anyways, let's see. Next up, we've got episode 12, Halfway Horrible. And this one for me is another one that's just not great. I'm going to put this one... Yeah, I'm going to put it, let's see, I don't know, we'll put it right in there. This one stars Clancy Brown, and he is a guy who works for this, this chemical preservative company, where they've uncovered this preservative that can, literally preserve anything infinitely, whether it be, food, or wood, or clothing, or whatever. Only what he's had to do to basically get this is, do a whole lot of shady stuff. This is another one. The bad guy gets his comeuppance. This one kind of jumps back and forth. It starts off where he is with this detective at the morgue because his business partner has just been killed. And based on what happened a handful of years earlier, they uncovered this substance in, the Amazon with this, this remote tribe of people, and they basically take this plant and then now they're using it in his chemical manufacturing company, and now some of his friends and co-workers are ending up dead, so who's killing them, sort of thing. And I really like this setup because it kind of opens up this genuine mystery, but the way it played out was just, I don't know, not very satisfying. It tries to get into this. We've seen a handful of these episodes introduce this kind of voodoo element to it, but I don't know. I just didn't really enjoy it. It doesn't really play out in an interesting sort of way. It kind of plays out exactly how you would expect. It's got some decent kind of, I guess, kind of gore, body horror type stuff, but yeah, it just all sort of plays out in a way how you would exactly expect. A bad guy ultimately gets his comeuppance, and nothing about it is, again, kind of super memorable or interesting. So, yeah, I just didn't enjoy it all that much. All right, that takes us to the final episode, episode 13, Till Death Do We Part. And this one I'm actually going to put in This One's a Crypt Keeper tier. I thought this one was actually pretty good. It stars John Stamos. And he is this guy who is kind of the the side piece of this, basically this like mafia woman. She kind of runs this sort of criminal organization. She's this old woman, but you know, she's got him as kind of her, you know, as her guy. Only he is cheating on her with this younger woman who is like one of the waiters at one of the clubs that this woman owns. This one has a little bit, it's kind of a crime drama, Bonnie and Clyde-ish type vibe to it. You know, so I kind of liked that aspect. This one's got kind of a cool shootout scene later on into it. It has a couple kind of surprises throughout as well. Stamos' acting isn't great, but it's okay. You know, this one definitely has more of a romantic element to it, so you kind of get that sort of almost steamy romance, crime, drama, thriller type of story to it. But overall, I enjoyed it fairly well. It's got a couple twists along the way. It's got kind of a final sort of shocking reveal to it that in some ways it is surprising. In other ways, I could see why some people might be a little upset or disappointed with it. But overall, there was enough there that I enjoyed it well enough. So yeah, I'm going to put it there at this one's a Crypt Keeper. So anyways, yeah, there you go. There is season 5 of Tales from the Crypt. There is my final tier list ranking. Like always, hit me up down below, guys. Let me know your thoughts on this season. What are some of your favorite episodes? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Would love to hear from you. So thank you so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it. If you got anything out of this video, go ahead and do me a favor and do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.